Welcome, folks. Good Tavach. Shavua Tov. A new week, new vitality. In particular, because coming to a new month, Rosh Chodesh of Menachem of. If you remember last week, we spoke. Menachem of means the comforting of the Father. Not that the Father comforts us, which of course he does, but we comfort the Father. That we have the power, we have the strength that's given to us that we can bring comfort to God, which is quite empowering, quite powerful. We live in times that of great peril. If you follow the news, which I don't suggest you do, I like look at the headlines and that's it. Because the headlines, anyways, the rest of the story doesn't tell that much. And even then, um, it could be very frightening. Someone didn't come to shul last night because him and his wife are frightened. What's going to be a day of rage? Um, and what's going on now with almost Israel waiting to see what its enemies are going to do, which that itself sounds a bit crazy, waiting to see what your enemy is going to do. And so our hearts, our minds are directed to the land of Israel. Why is the land of Israel so important to us? I feel very connected, and not because I'm born there. I am born in the land of Israel. But I left after 10 weeks. I mean, my parents left. I guess I followed. Tel Aviv. So it's not because I'm born there. What is it that if a bomb goes off in India and kills people, we feel bad for the victims, innocent victims. But if it goes off in Israel, we skip a heartbeat. We feel much more connected. How do we understand that? And how do we respond to that? So the fact that we feel that way is one thing, but what is the understanding behind it? And what is the result of that understanding of how and why Israel is so important to us that will determine on how we deal or respond or engage and connect with Israel, the land of Israel. Okay, so we're on for an interesting journey. And of course, everything begins with the Torah portion of the week. Because in the Torah portion, as the Alter Rebbe said, you have to live with it. Living with it, meaning its message, we have to see in our personal lives and collective lives on how it really resonates and talks to us. Not just talking to us a random idea, good ideas, and for living, but how it's pertinent in the day's issues, personally and collectively. So let us get right into the parsha. We're starting the fifth book, and it's good. All right, we're starting the fifth book, Devarim, Deuteronomy. And let's get right into the text of this week's parsha. Okay. The very beginning, Ele Hadvarim. And these are the words, Dvarim, words that Moshe spoke to all Israel on the side of the Jordan, in the desert, the plain, opposite the Sea of Reeds, between Paran and Tophel, and Lavan and Chaserus, and Dizahab. These are all different places. Some of them not even close to each other. And look at that, being in one place or many places at one time. See in a moment. It is 11-day journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. It came to pass in the 40th year, on the 11th month, on the first of the month, Rosh Chodesh. Well, tonight's Rosh Chodesh. That's Rosh Chodesh. This is the Rosh Chodesh. The 5th month is the 11th month. 6 months from now, which will be, right now we're feeling the heat of the summer. That'll be dead of winter. Rosh Chodesh Shvat. It is 37 days before the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the ultimate rabbinic speech, the whole book. The whole Dvarim, the 37 days before his passing that he is recounting the 40 years. And Moshe spoke to the children of Israel according to all that Hashem had commanded him regarding them, after he had smitten Sichon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Cheshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaris, in Edrei. On the side of the Jordan, on the land of Moab, Moses commenced. That's where they actually were before he mentioned places. See, those places were really very respectfully rebuking the people by mentioning the places where they started up, with Hashem. Whether it was, wanting meat, whether it was wanting water because they're thirsty, whether it was the golden calf, each one was a hint to something that they did inappropriately. So now, here on the land of Moab, they're Transjordan. Right over here in the picture, you can see. Right? Here's Cheshbon, here's Shittim, here's the Dead Sea, here's the Jordan River. They're ready to cross. So he commenced and explained this law, saying, God spoke to us in Horeb. Horeb is one of the names of Mount Sinai, saying, you have dwelt long enough at this mountain. And we're going to dwell on those words shortly, but to make note of them, that you have dwelled long enough at this mountain. Turn and journey and come to the mountain of the Amorites and to all of its neighboring places in the plain, on the mountain, and in the lowland, and in the south, and by the seashore, the land of the Canaanites, Lebanon, until the great river, the Euphrates River. If you recall, last week we had the borders, the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael, which is all the way to the Euphrates, which is including Lebanon, Syria, and more. The boundaries that God gave in the Torah last week. Yeah. Okay, see that I have set the land before you. Come and possess the land that God swore to your forefathers, to Abraham and to Isaac, to Jacob, and to give them and their descendants after them.
Scroll.
This is a lengthy monologue. So I'm also going to again continue with that monologue. No competition there. At least background competition. You can have any question or any insights you want to share, absolutely. Okay. So again, before passing, he learned from Jacob, his forefather, that you don't rebuke people, admonish them until your time of passing, for several reasons. And so now he's rebuking, but in a very dignified manner and only hinting to the things that occurred previously. But what we want to focus in on verse number 6, that you have dwelt long enough at this mountain. What does that mean? Well, of course, mountain referring to Mount Sinai. And what was long enough to be there? They constructed there the Mishkan, the sanctuary for God, as we learned in the second half of the book of Exodus, if you recall. And they're collecting all the materials that were necessary, the actual building of it, dedication, which then took later on in the beginning of the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. And then together with that, the systems of courts that were implemented at that time. And this is what Rashi explains. We had today.
Roll, please. Pardon.
Oops. Okay. Koi, did you? Okay. Everything's good. All right. So Rashi says, and you dwelt long enough. What does it mean? He has given you much greatness and reward for having dwelt at this mountain. You made the tabernacle, and including the menorah and other sacred vessels of the temple. You received the Torah at Mount Sinai, and which then the detail of that. So we have the tabernacle, the home of God's sanctuary. The detail of it is the menorah and other vessels, right? Then we have that we received the Torah, and the detail of that is the appointed courts and hierarchies of leaders. Okay, so those are the two things that we busied ourselves there, and God now says, "Okay, it's time to move on." Right. So, firstly, why is it time to move on? What is the meaning behind that? How do we understand that? Secondly, to be more precise in Rashi, Rashi says you made the Mishkan, right? The tabernacle, the home for God, and it only mentions the menorah. Why specifically the menorah? Right? There's other things. I mean, he says and other things, but he's specifically saying the menorah. Why? Third question, you received the Torah. Well, if you go to an order of things, what came first? Torah received, and then we built the sanctuary for God, right? Why is it the other way around? Right? And how is it that, what is the concept over here that you appointed courts and hierarchies, that's a part of the Torah? What is the nuance in that, right? But there's other questions. It says you receive much greatness and reward. Why is it that we received it here when in some of the in verse 7, we said turn and journey and come to the mountain of the Amorites and neighboring places and so on. And it says Rashi explains that God really wanted to bring us. He wants to bring us to Israel, right? So if he wants to bring us to Israel, so why are we experiencing all of this in Israel? Israel's going to be our homeland. So why not have, these experiences with God in your homeland? Why are you having it outside of the homeland, right? What is the purpose? If anything, it's, we just had 2 birthdays celebrating, actually 3 birthdays, but 2 children's birthdays. One adult, my son, Mendel, had a wonderful Shabbos over here. Sorry, some of you missed it. Beautiful Shabbos, celebrating his 40th birthday. And then his daughter was on Shabbos, Sarah, her 8th birthday. And then another granddaughter from Florida, Ava, celebrating her 6th birthday. So we just had a party downstairs. And he says, oh, my son Beryl says, these are memories that, last a lifetime. Hey, we made like these huge bouncies we have 16-foot ceilings downstairs. It went through the roof. It was huge. And bouncy. The kids were having the time of their lives. So, having that time of their lives in Zadie's synagogue is going to be memorable. Yeah. If it was done, in somewhere else, it'd be memorable, but there's something when you connect it with the place, right? So here's something memorable. Receiving the Torah, building a home for God. Wouldn't that be more memorable and more meaningful and more impacting if it was done in the Holy Land? Why is it done outside of the Holy Land? The answer to this will give us an answer to the nature of the land of Israel and our relationship to it. There's many answers we could give to this question. We're going to focus on one particular. Okay. So let's then understand the need for a homeland, right? What's the need for a homeland? So, of course, there's very practical benefits, right? When you have a homeland, what is that? When you have a homeland, well, then there's homeland security. You need it, right? You're going to be much more secure if you're part of something greater than yourself. And, and you all have a common interest to defend yourself. So, there's greater security when you have a homeland, right? There's a greater stability in life as a result of it. Infrastructure that is created through having a homeland that you are a part of. But what would be the greatest thing that it would provide? One word. Okay. Stability, good. Identity. Community, yes, but it gives you a sense of identity of who you are, right? Look what's happening now in Paris, right? We won a gold. Canada won a gold, or the United States won a gold. So everybody is cheering and feeling a sense of identity because what do you have to do with that swimmer who won, or with that, hammer thrower that won? Big deal. You don't know the person. You probably wouldn't lend them you probably wouldn't lend them $100 if you came across that person. So you're not connected, right? If you won't lend somebody $100, you're not really connected to that person. I mean, unless it's a drug addict, but that then you won't for other reasons, right? But you're not really connected. But all of a sudden, why? Because they're from the same country. So you feel an identity being part of the same country, that period, And that's something the Torah tells us, that we have after the great flood of Noah, that God set up people, different nations, different languages, different family of nations, all having their sense of identity, having their customs, having their cultural, idiosyncrasies, and so on and so forth. So, we Canadians, that we have this part of the land of mass of the world. So, we probably identify more with ice hockey than we do with, cricket, as they do in Australia. They'll identify more because their landmass, they're grouping together, their culture has developed and so on, right? And this is the way it is for all nations of the world. And the landmass that you occupy together gives you a sense of identity. From that sense of identity, therefore, you come together culturally on some levels, you come together for sake of security and so on. But the Jewish people are a different nation. What bore us as a nation is not landmass, it's the giving of the Torah, Mount Sinai. It wasn't even the Exodus from Egypt. And it wasn't even the fact that we have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Yes, they are a prelude to everything, but what makes us into a nation, right, is ultimately Mount Sinai, the giving of the Torah, right? That's our identity. And therefore given a no man's land, right, in the desert, was chosen specifically that it's not tied down to a specific land, right? Not specific land. And therefore we would be able to keep it on any land, right? That becomes our core identity. So is through Torah. How does the Torah look at us then? What kind of way does the Torah speak about us as an identity, right? Again, on Shabbos, I said, we have to now change what we Canadians usually call ourselves, or I call Canadians. We're the frozen chosen. We chose to freeze, right? But in the last several days, we chose to boil, all right? So it seems like we can't get our act together. What did we choose exactly above the 49th parallel? So, that's an identity that you would qualify Canadians, if you will. We won't speak about Americans because we don't want to say anything negative. That was just a joke, Americans. Don't take it personally. What would be the identity that the Torah would give to the Jewish people? What would be that cultural, if you will? I'm saying the word cultural. It's not really. I mean, there's something that makes. Oh, that's the Jew. Sorry. People of the book. Okay, excellent. What else? Any other? Online, anybody? Connection. Okay, so Italians also have connections. It might be to pizza, it might be to lasagna, but it's also connect. So huh? What? Mitzvahs. Okay, excellent. Community, but that's not a description. That's not a description. We're like the frozen chosen. That's a description of crazies up here, huh? Chosen people. Okay, good. Anybody else? That's it. That's not how the Torah calls us, though. Torah calls us a holy people, a holy nation. You shall be to me a kingdom of princes and a holy nation. That's who we are. Yes, we have a culture. The culture might be, Saliquit versus Cholent, Kugel versus, Dafina, and so on. That's all cultural, but that does not really give an identity of who we are, right? Those are some of the cultural things that we engage in, right? And they might be an offshoot of our real identity is that we are a holy people, a holy nation.
Included the word princes.
Excellent.
Understand the connection.
Okay, excellent. Hold on to that question because I'll answer it later. Okay. It'll go together with a question that we asked earlier on Rashi, and we'll get the excellent question. So what's the practical difference between a homeland-based identity and a holy-based identity? What's the difference? Excellent. You can be holy anywhere, right? What's some of the challenges of when you say the word holy? We're separated from others, right? We're unique in that respect because there's no other nation that has that adjective or has that part of who they are, right? Absolutely. So part of the challenge is first off to live up to it, right? That's one thing. And secondly is it's abstract. It's not like, this is Canada, the homeland, this is our border. Now, United States is having a little difficulty with that means a border, but again, we're not going to speak badly about anybody. Sorry, I just had to get that in. Right. So you know what security means, or you should know what that means of what security means. It's practical. It's down to earth. It's very simple what security means. And then the things that develop in a culture is within the regions. Various regions will have different kinds of cultures and so on. And that's very down to earth, earthy, if you will, as opposed to the concept of holiness, which is abstract, right? And not only is it abstract, but it's not a simple thing to achieve. That you should be holy, and therefore an easy thing to lose that sense of holiness, right? And hence, when the Jewish people are to go into the land of Israel, they just can't go into the land of Israel and be holy. You know why? There's a lot of unholiness around them. That unholiness needs to be uprooted. It can't live holiness with unholiness together. Just doesn't work. You don't build a society that's a healthy society. You're going to lose your sense of identity because the power of the unholy is so powerful. It is so draws one in, right? Draws you in, right? Just like at a birthday party, right? A 6 and 8-year-old are gonna have their cake and eat it too, and they're gonna have candy floss on top of it because that sweet stuff just draws you in, right? Now they're kids, so you wanna, that's fine. But that we should be drawn into that isn't good. So how are you going to do that? Is you need to fortify yourself, to strengthen yourself in your identity, in order that you can withstand the trials and tribulations that are going to happen, even when that all paganism will be removed from Israel. But the world is full of it. The world is full of materiality and full of negativity. That if you don't strengthen yourself to begin with, there's no way that you're going to be able to withstand. So there's two very important things that you need to do that. And that's what Rashi spoke about. The first is the Mishkan that he mentioned, remember. The Mishkan. You got to build a sanctuary, a place where God's presence is real, right? You need that. That God dwells in that place. Exactly. That God dwells in that place. That's what we call a makif, is something that encompasses you. Today, that would be like a synagogue, right? That is the sanctuary that we have today. So you need the support of a community. You need something greater than you that you attach yourself to, that has the presence of God there. So then, at Mount Sinai, it was to build a sanctuary. That's the first thing that you need to do, right? That there is a place holiness resides. God's presence is palpable and real, right? So that answers the question that we had, if you recall, right? Why the order is first build a Mishkan and then the Torah, when it happened the opposite way, is because here is we're talking about Moshe's talking to the Jewish people. And he's now at the ready to give over the leadership to Joshua. And 37 days are going to be, a week later after mourning for Moshe, they're going to be marching into Israel. How are they going to march in? Right? So they have to march in with their sense of identity. That identity is based in the presence of God. That there needs to be that presence of God in one's life, right? And this is it. And you shall be holy, for I am God, holy. As the Midrash says that you shall be holy. Why? For I have attached you to my hip, as the verse states, as the belt is attached to the hip of man in Jeremiah. Therefore, you, the Jewish people, shall be holy, for I, God, am holy. God told the Jewish people, I am not like a human king. An ordinary person is not allowed to carry a king's name. By contrast, God is called holy, as the verse states. What do we call him? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. Holy, 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 the Lord of hosts in Isaiah. And for the Lord of hosts is holy. The Jewish people are also called holy. As the verse states, you shall be holy. So for this to happen, we need a physical place where that holiness can reside. That's the Mishkan. And that gives us the strength to fortify our personal holiness in our lives. That's clear? And the Rebbe's words from this week's Sicha, the main component of holy nation is, as the verse says, you shall be holy, for I am God, I am holy. The nation must be holy because God, who is holy, is present in their midst. That's the first thing, that there's a sense of God in your life and the presence of your world. The Jewish nation made the Mishkan tabernacle a dwelling place so that there should be a fixed location for God's holy presence. Okay, that's step one. Now, in step one, that God is present, that's something we call a makif. Makif means it's beyond us, right? That sense, like someone who walks into the room who you really respect, you kind of check your shirt and check your making that you, because you really respect that person and you want to look your best and act your best, of course. So the presence of God is, something beyond us that we have an awareness of. That's what the Mishkan is to inspire us with, that we should have that sense of something beyond us present in our lives. But then we need to internalize it, right? And that's what Torah does. Torah, what is Torah is likened to in one word? I don't know if it's likened to God. It's God's wisdom. So I wouldn't say it's likened to. It's not metaphorically like God. It is God's wisdom. Metaphorically, it's like food, right? It's like food. Food you ingest and becomes your flesh and blood. That's why, I told the mothers this evening and the fathers, enjoy your kids because I'm not going to take care of them. You made them crazy with all that sugar. Enjoy them afterwards. Not to say I wouldn't have done it, but right. You are what you eat, as the saying goes, and the Torah becomes a part of us, right? So in other words, the presence of God is something beyond us. And we need to have that. But now we need to internalize. How do you internalize God's presence? Is that you have to, in other words, that God's holiness is my holiness. So I have to saturate myself primarily through fulfilling mitzvahs, studying Torah, right? That's how I express the holiness. As the mitzvah of tzitzis, right, which are numeric value of the word tzitzis, numeric value of 600. There's 8 strings, 5 knots, That's 13, 13 and 600, it's 613. Tzitzis to remind you of all the mitzvahs and to perform them. Why do we perform the mitzvahs? Because that expresses holiness of who we are. The holiness is who we are, right? We need the tabernacle, the Mishkan to have that presence so we can be inspired by that. But then we need to internalize. We internalize that through the study of Torah and through the doing of mitzvahs, right? That internalizes that we express now that holiness, right? That it's a part of us. And what I mean, expressing who we are, in other words. When you do a mitzvah, you're not doing it merely because God said to do it. Of course, you're doing it because God said to do it. But you're doing it because God said, express your holiness through the act of the mitzvah, right? Yes.
Obligated to wear tzitzit? Is it because they were told to do that mitzvah?
Well, because it's a time-bound mitzvah, that's why. So women are not bound by time-oriented mitzvahs. So tzitzis, tefillin, saying the Shema, right? Because it's got a specific time, so they're not bound to those mitzvahs that have a limitation in time, as a general rule. But that's we'll deal with that another time. Okay. So remember, Rashi said, we received the Torah, which the Torah is there to teach me how to live a Jewish life. Right? That's what the Torah is there. Of course, Torah in the teachings are in themselves, but ultimately Torah is to speak to us, to the Bnei Israel, on how we need to lead our lives. Right? What accompanies the teachings of Torah that we should be able to lead a Jewish life? What accompanies that? The sages, who are there to help us and guide us on how to lead a Jewish life. So when we say courts of justice that were set up at Mount Sinai, it doesn't mean courts of justice, that you can go for your litigation merely. Of course, there's litigation between two Jews, so you bring it to a beis din. But that's not the primary role of the court. The primary role of the court is to ensure the adherence to Torah and mitzvahs, to a Jewish life, to ensure or to adjudicate laws that are necessary, that come up, that become, current issues, right? Whatever is a current issue that might not have been an issue 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, it needs to be addressed. Torah addresses it. How do you know how to address it? Just on a simple level. Electricity, didn't exist 300 years ago. It does now. How do we address electricity when it comes to Shabbos? Right? How is that part of our life when it comes to Shabbos? What's the ruling? So setting up courts are the sages who ultimately in the Sanhedrin, the high court, that they would be responsible for the adherence of Torah and mitzvahs and for the adjudication of any law that's necessary. And of course, adjudication of any law that there was a a plaintiff had a claim against another, right? So these are the two things that Rashi mentions, that these things happen at Mount Sinai. What is he saying? What is Rashi saying? What's Rashi saying? So remember, what did the verse say? You've been here long enough. Time to move on. Why is it time to move on? Because what you need to be empowered with your identity as being a holy people, the almost year-long time that you were at Mount Sinai, that you made the Mishkan, you received the Torah, and you now have the sages and the courts set up, you have everything that you need to be empowered to make sure that you remain holy when you enter into the land. In other words, they need to come prepared with the inherent holiness that we have, that it needs to be, shall we say, practiced, if you will. It needs to be developed in order that when we enter in the land, that we maintain it. Because remember, what makes us who we are is an abstract idea that's easy to lose because it's abstract, and it's easy to lose because the rest of the world ain't holy. And their pursuit isn't holiness. Just, that's what means nations of the world. It's nothing against them. It's a reality. It's a fact. No. So these two things are necessary, right? And we have to develop a deep spiritual identity to who we are. In our DNA, we are holy, but that needed to be developed, right? It needed to be exercised, thank you, by the two things: the sanctuary, the presence of God, and the Torah and the teachers of Torah that would guide us in leading a Jewish life. That was necessary for us to have. We also asked the question why the menorah specifically mentioned. It's because menorah is light, illumination. That we would be able to not only illuminate our lives, but as the purpose of the menorah is to illuminate the world around us. So specifically it's mentioned because when we have the presence of God in our lives, how do we know that it's being expressed? How do we know that we've experienced that God is present in our lives? That we become a candelabra. We become an illumination. We illuminate people around us, right? We affect the world around us. We make that impact. That's clear? So now the question becomes, oh, that sounds amazing. But what do we need the Holy Land for then? I mean, we could do this anywhere. As a matter of fact, we did it outside of Israel. So what do we need Israel for? So just because you need a location, and as they say in French, right, in real estate, location is everything, right? So we have to find like the location where everybody's going to start up with us for the end of times. Right? Couldn't we found somewhere in the southern hemisphere where, less people live and where no one's going to bother us? But why do we need land for?
To sustain stability and continuity.
But what do we need the specific land of Israel? From the Euphrates to?
Why is it there geographically? Why do we need
No,
that
yeah, what do we, according to what we just learned, we're a holy nation, right? Holiness is everywhere, and therefore wherever we are to be. We're in Montreal right now, right? Right? Are we excluded from being the holy people? No.
We could reveal holiness.
Now, do you need to reveal it now?
Well, that's part of the whole goal, was to reveal God's.
So, but if you have to reveal it here and now, what is the point of the land of Israel?
It's the nucleus. So that's how I interpret it. It's the nucleus. There's holiness outside of the geographical boundaries of the land of Israel.
Because there's only
The
certain
nucleus
mitzvot that you do in the land.
is there.
Okay, but that's called circular reasoning. I'm sorry. You know what circular reasoning is? Because we have certain mitzvahs. So God wouldn't have made those mitzvahs for the land. And others, yeah, what you're saying is not a think of the English word hechrech. It's not, it has to be. Why must it be?
God says so.
Yeah, but that's an explanation. That can't. Okay, God said so, so I'm closing the book. We're finished. But that doesn't explain it. That just got, well, what's the understanding behind the fact of it? We're not arguing the fact of it, but you're not having an understanding of it. We need security. Oh, okay, we can have security in Argentina. That could have been our land. We need, a place to hang out. Okay, so it could have been in, it could have been in Kazakhstan. Whatever, like what is it
The rock. The rock.
of Gibraltar? We could have had that.
In Israel, in Jerusalem, is the center of creation. That is apparently the creation, the center of creation.
Okay.
So, I don't know, I'm just saying, that's because I was at the museum and it was.
Okay.
I was clear that that's it. That was the center of creation. That's where creation came from. And
Okay.
it's a fact. That's a place to go. So it's the holy land. It's the place. It's the rock.
Okay. Okay. Good. Even that we can argue. Why? So, why are we holy?
We're all part of God. God's part of us. We're all parts.
It doesn't say why. That's how it plays itself out. Yes, it's correct. You know why? Because he chose. Why did he choose?
Just because.
Because he chose. He's God, so he could choose. That's what he was, right? But he chose to make a people a holy people, right? Different than other people, right? Who have to illuminate ultimately, right? Being inspired by the presence of God to illuminate that presence to the entire world, right? We need all of that. Well, guess what? Why is the Holy Land holy? Not because Abraham happened to walk on the land, and Isaac and Jacob, and not because King Solomon and King David, and because it was a sanctuary that was put there. God chose it to be holy. Therefore, because he chose to be holy, that's why the rock of creation is there. It's the other way around. Okay? It's the other way. It's not like, it's like, it's like I came to this place so many times, I'm going to make this home. No, it's the other way around. This is home, and that's why I come there. Different. Got it? Got it? Very different way to look at things, right? Very differently. So, and therefore, when Joshua comes into the land, God says, and the captain of God's host said to Joshua, Yoshua, remove your shoes from your feet, for the place on which you stand, it is holy. Joshua did so. There's no other place in the world when you get off the plane, you kiss the ground. Only the land of Israel. You know why? The ground itself is holy. You know why it's holy? Because God chose it. So the holiness isn't because something happened there. Something happened there because it's holy. That's a 180-degree turn that we need to make, a very important turn to make, right? That doesn't happen in any other land. You don't kiss the ground, and someone might out of whatever because they saw a Jew doing it in Israel. So, okay, I feel.
Can't even do it if you wanted.
Huh?
Can't even do it if you want. When you get off the plane, you're not walking down the stairs, touching the ground. You're going through like a tunnel.
Okay, back in the day, you know. Okay, all right. So it is inherently holy, right? It's inherently holy, but what brings out its holiness, what reveals its holiness, is not when you're walking on the land, you're going to see mountains and hills, and you're going to see the mountains and hills the same anywhere, except it's the Jew that brings out the holiness of the land of Israel. How do we bring out that land, the holiness? Hmm?
By following the Torah.
By us being holy, following the Torah. Hmm?
That people must somehow feel that, no? Like in the prayers and like, I mean, doesn't the whole idea of Shrina have something to do with this? Also?
Shechina? Yeah, let's not fool ourselves and think that we are experiencing the Shechina, right? First of all, the Shechina is in exile. That's first of all. The Shechina is right now in the Torah learning that we do, right? But we're not experiencing it. It's too lofty, too powerful. We're not such spiritual minded individuals. We believe it, but that doesn't mean that's what we experience. As a result of that, we feel uplifted. But there's a difference between feeling uplifted and feeling whole than feeling the Shechina. That's not in the same on the same level, shall we say, right? So now we can understand the powerful emotions that we have towards the land of Israel is because it's holy inherently. I'm holy inherently. I need to reveal that inherent holiness through my service to Hashem through Torah and mitzvahs. And the land of Israel needs to express its inherent holiness by also that Torah mitzvahs is done on the land. And that's why there is mitzvahs of the land to bring out the greater holiness that there is in the land, right? But the holiness, just as in us, is inherent. Likewise, in the land, it's inherent. And what we need to do is just to bring it out, to express that truth, right? So it's not because of the history that we have in the land that therefore that's what makes it ours and makes it special. Everybody has a history. Italians have a long history in their land. The English have a long history in their land. Okay, not as long as ours. Okay, the Babylonians, Persians have a long history in their land. But ours is not a history, because history is nothing inherent to who and what you are in your identity. So an identity that is based on geography is not inherent to who you and what you are, right? Just you live there, you grew up there, and you develop certain idiosyncrasies, and accustomed yourself to certain culture and so on. That's not inherent to the DNA of who you are, right? But here, inherent to the DNA of who the Jew is holiness. That holiness, though, is very easy to be lost. We need to work on and develop it. And hence the Jews can't go into Israel right away, and they have all of it there because they need to develop it first, and then they can go into the land. And what land are they going into? A land itself that is inherently holy, that God chose. And therefore all of that history will be unraveled there. And we need, therefore, to be in that land in order that we can then develop the holiness to, the way that it's necessary to develop it. And therefore, what comes out of this is, in the current situation, what's going on, which is so important, until we can mention the G word, until the Jewish leader, the Israeli leadership, not Jewish, they're not Jewish leaders, they're Israeli leaders of Jews. They're not Jewish leaders because Jewish leader means you're following the Torah. They're Israeli leaders of that Jews that they, right, until they recognize the G word, God, and that the first thing that there is a sanctuary of God, a presence of God. Okay, today it's the presence of God is in exile. We're learning this in Tanya, right? These are the chapters in Tanya we're learning about that. The presence of God is in exile, but there is a presence of God, and ultimately, its place was in the Holy Land, right? And we need to fortify ourselves with that idea. And today we have that through the teachings of Hasidus, the Rebbe's teachings here, fortifies us, gives us the strength that we can be holy. Until there will be that notion that it's God's land that he chose, and that what makes it unique and special is it's the Holy Land. The Holy Land. Until people can be secure in saying that, we're doing a huge disservice. As a matter of fact, in a way, we're crippling the land more than we're developing the land. We're crippling the land as a result. At one point, the Rebbe said, better not to have a Jewish leadership there if they're going to cripple the land in such a way, right? Now, the only reason why we must have a Jewish leadership is only because, they will be concerned to protect Jewish lives. But they're crippling it at the same time because the self-interest that they have. Because until you don't lead a holy life in the Holy Land, you're going to cripple the land. And our security, but one of the things about a homeland is security, right? So we don't have a homeland for security, right? We have it because God chose it. Just as he chose us to be holy, he chose the homeland to be holy. Now, as a offshoot of that is we need security, right? But that's only as a result of holy people in a holy land. But if you're missing the crux of it, that it is God's land, it is God's people's land that we are responsible for, and not only responsible for that land, but to be a light unto the nations, to be that menorah that illuminates the world, then what we're doing is crippling ourselves. And hence those who study Torah, right, are in it, if they understand and appreciate that they are part of the army, then they are actually helping, because really what helps, last week's parsha, hold on. Last week's parsha, Moshe says to Reuben and Gad, who wanted to stay in the Transjordan because they had good pasture there for their cattle, right? If you recall, it says, "Va'achechem haboim lemelchama ba'atem teshvu bo." Your brothers are going to come to war, and you're going to sit here. So it doesn't say your brothers are going to fight a war. They're going to come to battle. What does it mean? Why not fight a battle? Because if we are a holy people and we act in the holy way, we only have to show up for battle. God will take care of the rest. We actually see that when we're not even coming that way with the miracles that happens in Israel. Like, as Ben Gurion said, not to believe in miracles in Israel is to be impractical. Right? The miracles are abound. But if we recognize that our source is our holiness, in ourselves that's inherent and that needs to be fully worked on and developed, right? Through Torah and mitzvahs, that we express that holiness, and we understand that the Holy Land is dependent on that, then we would say every day a prayer and do mitzvahs for the security of the Holy Land, and firmly know, not just believe, but know that your prayers and your mitzvahs are actually helping to secure the land. That all we have to do is show up for the battle and not even battle. Not even have to battle. Now, that doesn't mean, I mean, today, obviously, it looks like we have to battle, right?
They have to battle all the time. How do you go to war and have to battle?
No, but I know, but even when you do battle, you're only showing up for the battle. Who's battling? Who's battling? God's battling. Holy people means that you're fighting, you're doing whatever you got to do, you're showing up and doing what you got to do. But in the end, who is fighting? God is fighting for us. Right? That's why before you go to battle, you have to have the Mishkan, and you have to have your sages. You have to have the presence of God in your life. And you have to have the teachings from your teacher who's going to internalize that presence, that when you do go to battle, that you recognize what your place is. Yes, your place is you got to do everything in your capability to show up. But show up and know that the victory is a victory that God gives. We don't give the victory. We don't give it. We show up. We show up with our holiness, completely prepared physically, physically, as a soldier needs to be, but with the spirit that you need to be prepared with, right? That's the point over here, is a holy people in the Holy Land, that we can't lose that. If we lose that, then we don't have the proper preparation for the battle. You're right, we battle. No one's arguing that, but they never even said that, if we were, that it could be, believe it or not, that if we just show the strength, we wouldn't even have to use the strength. He has said that in the past. But that goes hand in hand with showing the strength of who we are. Who are we? A holy people.
So the first temple, if we go back all the way,
Yes.
where they were essentially, there's two tribes that were the holy tribes, because 10 had already been exiled, right? So there were two tribes left.
Yeah.
So if we follow that line 100%, those two tribes were essentially very holy, and yet the temple was still destroyed.
No, because they weren't, because the Jews were not acting holy. They weren't acting holy. One second. There was idolatry. There was, sure. Story of Eliyahu and the Baal. I mean, there's so many stories. It was destroyed because idolatry and other things. What did we say? What makes us who we are? Holy. That's abstract. Not only it's abstract, but it's a difficult thing to achieve. Right? Not only it's a difficult not inherently, but inherently the idea is not a simple thing to achieve. But when everybody else around you is eat, drink, and be merry, is all self-serving, right? How can I climb up the corporate ladder? How can I become the star, the next star? How can I get the gold medal, right? Even though I'm a guy competing with the girls, because all I want is gold in life. That's how could our culture allow such a thing? Because it's not holy. There's nothing holy. There's nothing inherently valuable. So a guy can become a girl and knock her in the head and knock and whatever. Huh?
And it's called fair.
Huh? No,
It's called
Right, it's right. It's crazy. Well, why is it? Why is that crazy? Because it's not holy. Holy means there's something inherently of value. The world we live in today is that a woman is not a woman anymore, and a man's not a man. I even read in Environment Canada, Shigoyim, giving about the environment, about what's going to be the temperature. So it says that elderly and young children and pregnant people. No such thing as a pregnant woman anymore. Pregnant people. Now, okay, we're making fun of it, but we're making fun of it, but that's not the point over here. A point I'm bringing out is the unholiness of the world is so rampant, and it's so easy that you see how people get caught up in it. So we're not caught up in the nth degree. Okay, that's off the charts. But how about over here? Right? How about over here that, just watch a sitcom, right? What's so bad? What do you mean? It's not holy. It's not holy, right? One second. It's just a point I'm bringing out is the struggle to be holy. That's my point. The nth degree, okay, see, we're not struggling with that, Mishigas. Others are. Half of the world is, or I don't know, half of the world, but a portion of the world at least, right? But we're struggling about, what, because to be holy is work. It's easy to fall back and not to do that work. It's much easier, right? To go and follow the unholy way. So we got to work at it. And it's constant work. That's why you need the Mishkan. Today's Mishkan is, I don't know, the Rebbe's teachings that take the teachings, that's the teaching is now to take that presence and to incorporate it and to internalize it and to make it that holiness is something that not is only innate of me, but it's something that is living of me. And then I can enter into the land. And then I can deal with all of the unholy stuff. That's why a child needs to go to school, yeshiva first, learn, and know nothing else but Torah, prayer. And that's it. Nothing else should be in their lives. Because if they don't get that strong foundation, when they're going to go out, it's going to be very easy to be swayed. You have that strong foundation that there's no other reality but mitzvahs. When my kids were 2 years old, they would see money, they would call it tzedakah.
Wow.
2 years old, they would call it tzedakah. Because that's all they knew money was for. Because all the time we would give them money and they put it into a pushka. They give it, right? That's what money was. That's pure, that's holy. That's teaching them the holiness, right? They grow up, then no money can buy them, a candy, and can buy them now a car, money becomes, but they've been brought up with something that is a holiness that is innate in us, that the mitzvah expresses. And that's what we have to
Say,
do.
Rabbi, that correlation between holiness and conduct.
That holiness needs to be brought into our conduct. That's the point. Holiness to be expressed in our conduct. That's the point. That clear?
So there's a correlation.
Absolutely. Now, again, let's go back. We're inherently holy, but that doesn't mean we conduct ourselves holy. Because to conduct yourself holy is hard. It's ethereal, it's abstract to begin with, right? and it is challenging. So it's something you got to work at. Something you got to work at, right? It's not something that's going to come naturally. It comes naturally that, Canada wins a gold medal, that everybody cheers. If you're Canadian, if you're American, they won a gold medal, you cheer. That's natural. Big, your identity has now been reaffirmed, reinvigorated. Shkoyach. Wow, amazing. Look at that. Something to be so proud of. What are you proud of? What did you do? Nothing. You did nothing. It's just because you feel so good. Well, that's not holy. That's called a taker. So you're taking from your culture that you're Canada won and you feel great. That's a taker. What'd you give to it? Nothing. Now, if you worked hard and got that gold medal, and now Canadians are proud because you might say, but the whole concept is not holy. That's the point. Holy means there's a great effort involved over here. There's a great achievement. The Mishkan, to create to have the presence of God, to internalize that, and to make that you own it, that you now conduct yourself that way. Cool. That's something. That's an achievement. All right, folks. I gotta run.
Thank you, Rafi.
Thank you, folks. God bless you
Thank
all. Tavach.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
TRC
evening.
on Thursday.